Hello, welcome to Weekly Guitar Tips, week 2, with me, Robin Allender. So this week I was going to talk a bit about Nick Drake and play a bit of Nick Drake's probably his most famous song, Fruit Tree. And Nick Drake's a brilliant guitarist because there's so much precision in the way he plays. When you see pictures of him, he has these very long fingers. And a lot of his stuff isn't actually as complicated as it sounds. It's certainly kind of not as hard to play as a kind of Nick Jones song or a Burt Jansch song or something like that. But Nick Drake had this real precision in the way he plays, like very, very crisp arpeggios and things, partly because of the long fingers. Another thing that's, I think, with Nick Drake is that I think you can tell that he was a pianist, or he learnt to play kind of from the piano, because his mum, Molly Drake, was a musician, and she wrote a lot of songs on the piano. And there's a really good album by the Unthanks, which is cover versions of Molly Drake's songs, which is worth checking out. Anyway, the great thing about kind of playing on the piano as opposed to the guitar is it's much easier to come up with strange chords, and Nick Drake's songs are full of strange chords. And with the piano, it's a lot easier to get a wider range of notes. You can play a low note at the same time as a high note with much more easily than you can on a guitar. And to kind of adapt that to the guitar, Nick Drake made use of a lot of kind of quite strange tunings, often with quite low strings, strings tuned down quite low. So basically, when I first learned Fruit Tree, I learned it in a standard tuning, which was like this. I'll just play it quickly, the intro. Okay, play it again. Kind of like that, which is pretty accurate, but I think it sounds much better in the slightly different tuning, which I think is probably the one Nick Drake used. And I'll link to the tab I used to learn it this way. So the tuning for this is your bottom E goes all the way down to a B, so you're kind of really low. That is low. And then your A goes up to a B, which is like, oh dear, I hope I don't break it. When you're tuning guitars into weird tunings, it's a good idea to just play with the guitar and loosen the strings up a bit before you detune it, because otherwise it makes it, you're less likely to break a string, basically. So we've got the B, E down to a B, A up to a B, and then capo on the 5th fret. So you can hear got those lovely kind of high notes because we're playing up here, but we've also got these really low notes because we've got the E string tuned down. So the way that the Fruit Tree is played in this tuning is just like this, was really simple chord. I think it just sounds so much nicer in that tuning because you can really hear those resonances, from the slight dissonance there, which is really nice. And I think learning to play this song, you can really get to, it's like getting an insight into what would have attracted Nick Drake to compose that song and to work out those chords in this tuning, and that's what's really attractive about it. So it kind of goes like this. You can learn the rest yourself by looking at the tab. But that's just the intro to Fruit Tree. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next week for another tip. In the meantime, have a great evening. So Did you get the scampi fries in?
Yeah.
Great, thanks.